Most of us remember summer camp growing up, but for many of us, summer camps are a distant memory. Well, what does church camp look like in 2021? Stick around, and we'll talk about that on today's special summer camp edition of Here at Home. Welcome to the Here at Home podcast, a podcast about the people here at McGregor, their stories, their ministry, and their love for Jesus. My name is McGregor, and if this is your first time to the show, welcome. And welcome to a special edition of the Here at Home podcast. I'm calling it Summer Camp Edition. So join me in welcoming our guest for today's podcast, Mr. Summer Camp himself, Chad Moore. Welcome, Chad.
Great to be here.
Never been called Mr. Summer Camp, have you?
No, and I'd be okay with that being the only one as well.
Well, at least for this podcast, right?
There you go. Yeah, that works.
We'll have a lower thirds, Mr. Summer Camp, comma, Chad Moore. Yes.
He survived.
Yeah, he survived, right. 2 summer camps, and at least this summer, and many more. How many summer camps do you think you have been to, either as a participant or as a leader?
It's double digits for sure.
Yeah. You think like 50?
I don't know how many. No, it's not that many.
Not that many, okay.
Those are Kerry Robinson numbers. But
yeah.
But no, I don't think I've got quite hit the 50 milestone.
Yeah. But you've been around a lot of summer camps.
There's been quite a few.
You know your way around the old summer camp. Well, today is a special edition of our podcast because you just got back from the second summer camp for our church just this past week. And or actually on the beginning of this week, you got back.
Yes.
We might get to that part later. But before we start talking about kind of the specifics about summer camp, especially what it looks like and some of the things that happen during summer camp, both for the middle schoolers and high schoolers, let's back up and make sure we have the base on why even do summer camp. Is it something that's still relevant? Is it something that's still important in the lives of students? Why do you feel it's important to have students at summer camp?
Yeah, I think it's a piece to the puzzle. It has its role in the overall ministry adventure, ministry strategy. I think sometimes we can blow it out of proportion to make it more than it is. And other times we can minimize it and make it less important than it can be. And so over the years, just here at McGregor, we've seen a number of new students really become part of the family while at summer camp,
right,
and spending that extended amount of time together off-site, away from a lot of the distractions the world provides. And it gives you that jolt sometimes needed to be able to start those relationships and deepen those relationships, similar to what we do when we have a retreat during the year, but an even longer amount of time, for that. And so, I think the relational aspect is definitely one of the real big reasons for doing a trip like that. Whether it's a summer camp or a mission trip or, just spending that time together is very useful.
I was thinking about that as for adults, we don't get to go to summer camp anymore unless we're volunteering, but the mission trip experience, that relational aspect, you come back with people that are now going to be lifelong friends. Most likely because you spent a week serving together, like you said, without the distractions of the normal world.
Right.
So yeah, the relationship side I see as a huge part of summer camp. What else? You were getting ready to say something else there.
Yeah, I mean, and also just the spiritual development. If you go to a camp that's run well, that has good teaching, that knows what their priorities are and where they fit in the overall process as well, because sometimes the camps can get a little out of whack in terms of where they're, in terms of what place it plays in the overall, ministry philosophy. But, the students can progress in their faith. They can be challenged by outside voices that they don't normally get to hear from. We love giving our students the opportunity to do discussion groups with the summer staff at Snowbird and at Word of Life now that we've been going to the last couple of years as well, where we have some college age kids that get to be, a new voice for them. And when we go to a camp that we trust and we know that they are reinforcing the biblical truths that we want communicated, that can be really impactful in their lives. Yeah. I've always kind of viewed as I got into ministry, summer camp as kind of like the JV summer trip, and then mission trip being the varsity summer trip. They both have their role, I think, and I think most students start at JV before going to varsity,
right.
And so it's a step in that process. It's been a bigger one here with COVID. We haven't been able to do a mission trip recently because there are, going to a camp that has its own complex that you can kind of be in a bit of a bubble there. It's easier to do in this current dynamic that we find ourselves in versus going on a mission trip and trying to invest in a community and go out into the world. That's been a little more difficult, and we're eager to get back into doing those and helping our students progress from through their faith journey and into that environment as well. But I think they both have their role.
Right. Now you mentioned the names of 2 camps, and those were 2 camps that we were involved in this year. Give us a little bit of background about each of those camps, because like you were saying, not all camps are created equal, and there's a reason why you've chosen, to be involved in these 2 camps.
Yeah, I know McGregor's had a variety of camps they've gone to over the years. When I got here, they had the group had most recently been to Snowbird the previous 2 years, if I remember correctly. And so my first year was the third year there up at Snowbird, and it was a camp that I had never heard of before. And so I went the first summer just kind of learning it and observing it myself, and got to know some of the staff, got to see some of the, they have a tremendous amount of activities and kind of outdoor type options that the students love to take part in. And
what's the full name?
Snowbird Wilderness Outfitters.
Yeah, it just sounds, yeah.
Yep, is the full name. And so you're up in, in the foothills of North Carolina up there, and up in Andrews, and it's a great trip. Those guys have a great handle on where summer camp fits in the overall scheme of ministry, and they have year-round ministries going on up there, and they do some breakouts with the adults and stuff. It's great to hear some of their philosophy and theology behind it all. And over the years, I've grown to trust them more and more. Our students love it. In fact, part of the reason we have 2 camps now is because we couldn't fit at Snowbird anymore. It's a trip that a lot of churches go to on the over the course of those weeks. We can only get so many spots. And so a couple of years ago, we had about 15 kids that were on our wait list that did not get to go at all. I said, it's time to kind of break it off there. And so now we do we take our 8th through 12th grade, get to go to Snowbird if they choose to, and then 6th through 8th grade gets to go to Word of Life if they choose to. And so 8th grade kind of gets to have their pick. Yeah.
Tell us about the Word of Life camp. Why you chose that?
Word of Life is an organization that I've been familiar with for many years, and we have an elder on staff and Al Green that's been involved with them for a long time as well. And so, in looking for what would middle school specifically, where we want them to go, how do we want that to work? We did MFuge for I think at least one summer here as a trip that I had done in the past through the SBC, and they changed where their trips were and change some structure to where it didn't make sense for us to go back to that the next year. So we were looking for another place to go, and Word of Life was one of those that was on our list that we were checking out. It's a lot closer. It's cheaper, and so it's an easier on-ramp for middle school to be a part of. And what we saw is that when we made that adjustment and kind of split those that trip up, our middle school participation basically doubled between how many of them would go all the way up to North Carolina for Snowbird, and what parents and families were comfortable with. And the Word of Life camp, which is just north of Tampa, was something that they were much more comfortable with. Yeah, and it's run really well. There's no, they're reliable theologically in terms of their teaching. They do have a lot of great options in terms of the fun aspects as well. But they are run pretty well as a camp, and so we've grown to trust them as well. And our children's ministry here at McGregor had a history of going up to Word of Life as well. Rita had gone up there for years, so they were a known commodity in terms of that as well. Yeah.
All right. So talk about Word of Life camp. That was for the middle school, primarily 6th through 8th. What does camp look like for those campers that went this year? Kind of give us an overview of what, because some of our listeners might be listening going, I remember going to camp and, we sat around the campfire and sang Kumbaya or ate s'mores, or, we got to swim once a day. And that was, what does camp look like at Word of Life for those kids?
Yeah, they go, they basically have the whole week, more or less Monday through Friday in terms of full days and activities. And they stay in, wouldn't call them cabins, more like in between cabin and dorm rooms that the Word of Life Bible college students normally stay in during the year.
Oh, okay.
And so they move out of there, and the students move in for those weeks. And the week, we send just middle school, but it's middle school and high school that are there from different churches and neighboring areas. And they have some of your traditional camp type activities, some of your like big rec game competitions and those things. They've got morning teaching services and great worship band that's up there. We actually have one of our former students, Zach, was on their band last summer.
Oh, wow.
Being a part of Word of Life up there. And so great services in the morning, at night, different activities. They do have a pool on campus, and they've got, some lake activities and paintball and rock climbing wall and, different things like that. But they're together the whole week is a great aspect to how they run it there. They're, that cabin of boys or girls have their trained summer counselors that are in there with them and stay with them all week. And so we took students there last year, and they were begging in the bus ride home, "Can we please come back next year? Can we please come back next year?"
Always a good sign.
So that's a good thing. And for a lot of those kids, it's their first week away from parents, and it is a step of faith in some. And we pray before we leave that parents will have an extra dose of comfort and peace and trust in our sovereign Lord that is just as sovereign the week of camp as he is all year round. And but most of them love it, and come home wanting to go back. And they have a number of recommitments or just steps they take in their faith journey as well. And Word of Life does a great job of actually compiling those into a video as well.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Still talking about the Word of Life camp. What were some of the outcomes? Did you hear stories of any particular students and decisions they made, or commitments they made, or any kind of even life transformation you saw there? Once they got back.
Yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to speak with a lot of them personally yet, because they got back and we left for the other camp the very next day.
That's right.
And so just time-wise, where we're having this conversation right now, I've seen some of what I've heard some of the recommitments and things of their just kind of comment-based, but I haven't been able to have like those actual conversations.
Dive in,
and dive in and hear about how God was moving. But I know that you can see it on Facebook. Word of Life posts a kind of a recap of both the week, but then it has a separate video of the student testimony kind of things. And so we can watch it on Facebook. And a number of our students were in that video communicating some of what God had done in their lives that week.
Oh, that's cool. Can you send me that link?
I will find it and send it to you. Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe we can even, Christian, can we put that in our show notes, our website?
Do we have show notes, Christian?
No, not really.
We do have show notes.
Oh, we do have show notes.
Christian can speak.
Yeah, I'm Christian.
Look at that. We ask, he delivers.
He does.
I'll put it in the show notes.
There you go. Awesome. Let's jump now to Snowbird Wilderness Outfitters. Yep. You have a little more of a close-up experience with that this past week. Tell us some of well, first of all, compare that with like the activities and what's different and unique about Snowbird as a camp.
Yeah, there's, it's in the, up in the hills or mountains, depending on where your perspective is for what counts as a mountain, up in, North Carolina. And so just its location provides some opportunities that a camp near Tampa, wouldn't have, like rafting and, some of those kind of things, zip line type stuff. And so there is an increase in the number of outdoor activity options that they have up there. They've got a great campus up there, and they've got some off-campus things that they do as well. I know Christian himself went mountain biking and a number of other things with us on that trip this past week, and he only fell a couple times, I think.
Did we get that on video?
Unfortunately, no. We do not.
Any injuries?
We did have some boys that had to be trucked back to the van, but I did not. I made it through.
You made it. We're proud of you, Christian.
He succeeded. So yeah, there are some. It's kind of an amped up version compared to Word of Life in that end because of where it is and more opportunity.
Got some ropes activities there.
Oh yeah, they got you got your rock climbing tower. What is it they call it? It's aerial park is what they call the high ropes thing that they have there. You got zip lines, you've got skeet shooting, you've got paintball on campus, you've got off-campus canoeing and tubing and mountain biking and hiking, and there's all kinds of stuff.
Goes on and on. It sounds like a great place. I've actually been there, but it was like, I don't know, it's over 10 years ago. So they probably have added a lot since I was there 10 years ago. I was pretty impressed 10 years ago. I thought it was pretty amazing place to come. Yeah. Doing that. So what were some of the things that you saw in the lives of students that were there? Some, you don't have to give any names or anything, but some of the, if I'm listening and I'm like, okay, what is camp doing in the lives of our students when they're there? Give us a couple of examples of some things that you have seen.
Yeah, they, one of the things that I do like about Snowbird is that they don't go for that over emotional hook night, the cry night, stereotypical thing. And, going back over the years of student ministry of, on Thursday night, everyone's all of a sudden getting saved again, because they're just so drained and just, over emotional and not necessarily progressing, through a natural week as much as I think they do at Snowbird, where they're challenging from the beginning of the week to the end of the week of, how are you living? Are you on track with living for Christ? Are you a believer is definitely a question that they ask, and they share the gospel over and over again as that week works throughout. And, I think a lot of the work that God does in the lives of our students there is that more the taking it serious in their walk, being challenged in is what they're professing lining up with how they're living. And I know that was some of what our students were challenged on this week. And they spend a lot of time in share groups being open and honest with each other. And those relationships do build. And I think some of the ones walking into camp thinking I'm the only one struggling with this, or everybody else has got it all together, and my life is the only one falling apart. My family is the only one falling apart. They get there and they get to hear from other people that no, we're all doing our best. We're all facing difficulty. We're all struggling in our own way, and having some of those honest conversations that hopefully translate into lasting change, which is always discussed every year at camp. Of don't let this just be a camp high that I've made all these commitments,
right.
And because Snowbird, they admitted when we were there one night that we see you get on the bus, you tell us you're going to do stuff, and then we ask you next year how'd you do, and mixed success would be a generous way of putting it, I think, and unfortunately, and so that's where I say camp has a place, but it's a single event,
right?
And we as a ministry are much more focused on the full year of the ministry activity
stuff. Here.
Yes, and so that's where just me personally, I'm not trying to knock anybody, but I just I have no desire for us to spend months planning the 1 week of camp. I would much rather us as a student ministry team be working towards how are we going to keep everything moving? How are we going to continue to minister to these students when we get back from a camp, and let Snowbird put the time in and develop that 1 week and make it a great week for them. But it is one piece to the puzzle.
Yeah. I think you've got that balance perfect, because you're right. Yeah. The amount of resources that some churches will spend for 1 week. And like you said, it is only 1 week. I'd much rather see that time and investment in the week in and week out discipleship, relationship that you're investing in the students. And that's what can be, I think, a great combination. They have a great week, but they come home and they're still being challenged to follow through on maybe some of those commitments that they've made. And I know it's still early because you guys just got back a little late. Is that the first time you've had a bus breakdown in your camp career of taking?
At McGregor, yes. Definitely not the first time I've had transportation issues on a trip. I had a bus breakdown in Washington, D.C. It was one of those 15, passenger mini buses, break down in the exit lane of whatever that main metro station is right there near the Capitol. Had people honking at me behind. I had cops walking up, looking at me like, "What's going on?" I thought I was going to get arrested for some kind of terrorism or something like that. And I think in God's sovereignty, actually, the cop who walked up that I ended up speaking with that day knew of our church, like specifically.
Oh wow!
And so it was,
it went as good as it could.
Yes, it was. I spent the day. We pushed the bus in front of like the one of the monetary buildings that's right there, and waited for someone to come change the battery in it. So I've had some bus issues in the past, some plane issues and things like that. But this is the first one at McGregor that I think we've had.
And it just puts you in how late?
We got back in about 2:30 a.m. Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was the anticipated time originally?
Oh, we were on pace to be back between like 9:30 and 10 p.m. the night before. We were doing great. We were booking along even with some traffic we hit and stuff. We eat at rest areas to try and keep moving.
That's a long drive, isn't it? How many miles?
Oh, miles? I don't know. I know we leave.
700?
The buses leave camp at 8 a.m. that day on that Saturday.
And you're trying to get back between 9 and 10.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a long day. God bless you, my brother.
The students are sleeping, most of them.
Yeah, and then to add that extra time at the end, yeah. Anything else that you could share with our listeners about just summer camp in general that might be beneficial for them to know about? Maybe whether it's philosophy-wise or just maybe something specific. Yeah,
I'd say sometimes it's difficult for a parent to decide if my kid's not thrilled about going, how much do I push them? And that's always a judgment call for the parent. It always is. I usually hedge more on the end of push them and get them, and try it one time, get them there. Usually it may take a couple of nights to settle in, but by the end of the week, most of the students are glad they're there, and have gotten something out of it. And so I'd say try it. For one, if there's a family who hasn't, and I guess prioritize. I know it's expensive. We try to do some things to lower the cost and
fundraiser.
And we even have some fundraisers that students can hustle and make. We had one girl earn all of her camp money this year.
Wow!
Because we have some other options that a lot of students don't usually take us up on, but selling different like Krispy Kreme cards and stuff like that to earn it. And so we do have those opportunities for families who need the additional help. And we've always got generous families that are willing to give to help with scholarships as well. And so we always tell parents, and we mean it. Don't let money be the reason your student didn't come to camp.
Right.
If there's another reason, so be it, but don't let money, be that reason. And I would say, when we are able to offer mission trips again as well, take that as an awesome next level kind of thing. And maybe if you do have to choose between camp and mission trip, maybe choose a mission trip. I think a lot of the camp benefits can be attained through a mission trip, in addition to the advantages and the benefits and the lifelong impact that a mission trip can provide.
Yeah. Well, so grateful that you provide both those types of opportunities. Typically, I know COVID has kind of messed us up a little bit, but hopefully next year we'll be back normal. I think this is going to wrap up our special episode of Here at Home. And thank you, Chad, for joining us and being a part of our Here at Home podcast. And I would like to say that this episode is coming out just in a few days from recording. It'll come out on Saturday, and our regular Here at Home podcast will be coming out this Thursday. And we're going to be talking with Mr. Kerry Robinson about serving for a long, long time in ministry. So you don't want to miss that Here at Home podcast. So thank you, listeners, and we'll see you next time on Here at Home.